Hello, everybody. It's always surprising to me when it happens. We don't have any consistency anymore. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Dungeon of the Mad Mage. This is session 174, and we're going to jump immediately into a recap and then dive into this session of Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Previously, outside of the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, the party laid down to rest in their home, Trollskull Manor, the night before Midwinter. The amount of rest they actually got was questionable, as each of them dreamed of Shadow. But it was only Bones who felt anything to go with those dreams. Fangs piercing his inner thigh, a serpent, in the night. The Tabaxi, immediately concerned by the shape and coloration of the snake, which he grabbed, rushed to Matashtai for aid, but as the groggy monk investigated, he found no trace of bite, venom, or indeed serpent. It was odd, to say the least, though after a brief moment of speculation, Matashtai guessed it might have something to do with the serpent's fang, which Bones had been using since the Slither Swamp. Bones set aside the dagger and slept through the rest of the night. The morrow was a perfect dead winter day in the City of Splendors. Fresh, soft snow blanketed the city, and the winter festivities started in earnest early in the morning. The party witnessed a strange game between the adults and children of the North Ward, with prowling bands of children taking down predetermined adults and burying them beneath the snow. The party, realizing that much of what they might wish to accomplish today might be difficult due to the holiday, and so they set off to other various tasks. Matashtai sought out the masked man, hoping to continue his training in speechcraft, but unfortunately the talented bard was otherwise occupied. Somewhat listless without Valena, the monk returned to Trollskull to paint and rest. Ezrah, meanwhile, had decided that a quiet day in would actually be the best plan from the beginning. The sorcerer spent time with Zeltzor and researched more within the Tome of Calabash, finding new strange patterns within the ever-changing book. Bones spent a good portion of the day at the Wormbone, working with Ochotu and then with Matashtai's assistants, preparing the final touches on a new project. The rogue then headed to the South Ward, to Falconmere Manor, which happened to be experiencing a touch of spring. The Tabaxi spoke with Melanor Fellbranch, hoping the Enclave could assist him in contacting Jarlaxle Bainray, a former acquaintance. Bones hoped that he could convince the enigmatic drow to blacklist House Ovrendar, which might hopefully diminish their resources and manpower in the coming conflict. Unfortunately, Melanor had no real way to accomplish this goal other than the suggestion to search out a magical means of communication. Meanwhile, Ashes visited the Blackstaff Tower, hoping to engage Vajra Safar and request aid from the Grey Hands in the upcoming conflict with House Ovrendar. He was able to do just that, though only after being caught by Vajra in an odd situation with the sentient door handle Periwinkle and a flask of oil. Regardless, Vajra committed to putting out feelers and seeing what she could come up with. The day concluded with an evening celebration at the Lifted Spirits with several employees, the party's 2 dragon companions, regulars, and other members of the Trollskull Alley in attendance with their animal companions. And a misunderstanding from Ochotu that supplied meals for several members of the Pet Corps. As the celebration winded down and people began to go their separate ways, Ashes visited the Temple of the Moon to commune with Zalara and Selune, but though he did feel a connection with the goddess, it didn't seem fruitful at this time, leading him to instead train with Taverin. As Midwinter came to a close, the party once more rested. Another day closer to Matashtai recovering from his resurrection, another day closer to the search for Valena, and another day closer to war with House Ovrendar. Speaking of closer, Ezra sure did feel better in his room above the yawning portal. If only it weren't for all the racket below him. And that is where we fade into our scene. Ezra, I need you to roll me a Constitution saving throw, DC 10.
As I'm copying shit, you're making me do work. Con save, you said?
Yeah, Constitution save, DC 10. Easy peasy.
What about
Even
a
though this is a place you're normally not sleeping, even though there is a racket throughout the night down below you, you are able to sleep a restful sleep within the proximity of the yawning portal. You do not gain a point of exhaustion.
I don't fuck up entirely.
You do not fuck off entirely. Absolutely not.
Did we subtract money for my room at the yawning portal last time?
I believe it was 10 gold, I told you?
I think,
10 gold.
If you told me a number, I took it off.
Yes, I believe I told you 10 gold. And the reason why it was 10 gold is because you basically got other people kicked out of a room.
Kicked out. Yep. But Durnan understands the ailment, the disease that is the yearning for the Undermountain.
He gives you knowing looks.
Yep.
Okay, so it is the 1st of Alturiac. It is a new month, friends and fellows. You have already... Let me change some music. You've already had access to the magic shop. So everyone's already kind of like looked over things and started to rifle through that. Does anyone want to share things that they have purchased? I know we've talked about them a bunch between us, but I don't know that we've actually done it on stream. Anyone care to share what they have bought from the new magic shop? You do not have to. It's not a requirement.
I finally joined the Bag of Holding Club, and I now also have a Bag of Holding.
Hey, one of us.
And I also have a drum that makes people scared.
A drum that makes people scared. Indeed, the kettle of drumming.
You also got your Bag of Holding for like a 10th of the price I paid for.
Yeah.
Random rolls.
Between it was the drum and the bag together was like 70 plat. It's weird throwing around that number like, oh, it's only 70 platinum.
I told you guys I told you guys last time that you are actually relatively wealthy. You're not like obscenely wealthy, but you're actually relatively wealthy.
We would be considered upper middle class. We would be able to buy a house in this market.
You own a house in this market. Absolutely, you'd be able to buy a house in this market.
We didn't really buy the house, though. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we did not go into a mortgage.
Sure. You didn't buy it. That's fair.
Well, we are in a mortgage, actually.
Well, oh yeah, that is. We
are in a mortgage on this one.
Kind of semi-sorta, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Ash has bought a bag of holding and a kettle of drumming. Other people want to share theirs?
Ezra picked up what is referred to as an infinite scroll case. So I have the ability to store all of my scrolls into one little tiny box and draw them at my leisure. And when I draw them, it immediately pulls the scroll I'm looking for. In addition to that, I also picked up a ring of jumping and a egg of fog, pretty much a smoke bomb.
Egg! Yeah, pretty much a smoke bomb. Or a fog bomb. And I think the only other person who has purchased anything, Zach, or Bones, didn't you buy the shield +1?
I bought a shield +1.
Mark that.
I'm gonna make it into animal armor.
Yeah. We're gonna cannibalize that one. And no one else has bought anything else. But there are eyes on a few things here. Okay, cool. Let us move on to other things for the day. Ezra, I have not horrible news, but I have not great news for you.
Did I lose my day?
No, you do not lose your day. Absolutely not.
Okay.
Your rolls were high enough to keep you okay without any penalties, other than the oddity of having to go through,
And the 10 gold.
and the 10 gold. That's a penalty.
It's a penalty.
Penalty,
Come on,
quote
that's
unquote.
money. I'm a frugal individual. Thank you very much.
All right. Calm down. Calm down, Dad. Oh, goodness. No, you feel something fade from you as you awaken this morning, and you very briefly see a rune flash in the air.
This augury is
And
finally leaving.
Nope. The last time
Oh.
you saw this rune, you were given a blessing of freedom from the Dead Tree portal, and that has left you.
Okay.
So not a huge deal or anything like that, but just something to be cognizant of.
Yep, I had 7 days on that, and I just didn't really have.
There wasn't a time. It didn't come up.
There were a couple of things I probably could have used it on, but I did other things
Big
in
deal,
such as life. That has been removed.
So, it is a bright, chilly morning. Alturiac first. You know that the city will be bustling back to life after the celebration of midwinter. Well, we say bustling back to life. It's still the middle of winter, so the city is kind of like in a strange-ish hibernation mode. There's plenty of activity still happening. It's just nowhere near the activity that happens in the other seasons of the year, because people are like, fuck that, it's cold outside. So they don't go outside unless they have to. But all of your activities are available to you. What's up?
Was there a plan, or were we required in regards to extricating the silver dragon from the city? If so,
you were told by Vajra Safar
that they have 2 days.
That you were supposed
he needs to get the fuck out.
You were supposed to escort Nindeltath out of the city.
Yeah.
That while Nindeltath is within the city limits, he would be under the companionship of Oranax, the Dragon Ward. Oranax will not leave the city, right? Because he will not stray beyond the confines, or not. He'll go outside of the Dragon Ward, but only just, right? And the second octave is in the wings, supposedly, right? We haven't really discussed it. It didn't come up in conversation, but in passing conversation, you would have been told that you are supposed to meet your acquaintance, or meet the individual that is basically supposed to be taking care of Nindeltath in the Undercliff Inn in Undercliff Village, which is
To the
village to the east of Waterdeep. It's
Is it under a
where
cliff?
a goodly portion of the farmers in the nearby countryside of Waterdeep live. Or
Well, Ezra would have made sure there was a plan to not piss off the Blackstaff.
And so that is supposed to happen today, but you were not given any specific time period on when that needed to happen.
I would have started making my way back to the Troll Skull so I can have those conversations, because fucking curses.
People might realize in the bright and early morning, Ezra is normally a very early riser, but I think at least one or two of you also are. You might realize that Ezra is not there. But Ezra does arrive after a little while via coach. And you're all around and about, able to break your fast and make plans for the day. Troll Skull, or the Lifted Spirits rather, is back to normal business hours. So there's a small crowd here. I say crowd, there's like 4 or 5 regulars that come in that live in the nearby areas that basically are like, fuck it, why would I cook for myself? I can just go to the Lifted Spirits. So they come here every morning to eat breakfast. So, that's all going on. And then other than that, your employees are just kind of setting about their day. What do you guys wish to do? As Ninteltath and Aranax are at the bar, kind of like feasting away.
Well, I mean, our dragon friends are in our charge, like, so
Just want to
we're
walk
gonna
them
make
out.
sure that at least one of us is with them at all times. Otherwise, we'll probably get in trouble.
Yeah, I'm not getting in trouble. That's
Sorry,
right.
did I miss it? Like, how long are they staying in the town?
They're
before we, like,
leaving-
let them out?
They get 2 days.
Nindeltath is
Okay.
leaving, is supposed to be out of the city today.
Yeah,
Oranax
today is
is
like-
always going to be here, but Nindeltath is supposed to be out of the city today.
Okay, well, I'm gonna approach Nindeltath and I'll be like, so, supposed to head out today? Is there anything you want to do in town before we escort you out?
He gives you I mean, he looks dour. He just always looks dour, but he gives you a look that is, it's somewhat a little poignant, a little sad, right? And he just kind of shrugs and shakes his head at you, and he says, "Yesterday was an unexpected pleasure, but I am ready to leave whenever that is an option."
All right. Well, I kind of looked to the guys and said,
Yeah,
"You
Absolutely.
want to,
Yeah,
get
yeah.
some
Let's
food and maybe walk them out."
if
Yeah.
you're ready to go, like,
We go.
Simple enough. Anybody need to set any things in motion or anything like that before you head out of the tavern? Like any missives needing to be sent? Any instructions given to anybody?
Yeah. I will talk to the changeling.
Anastas.
Anastas, hey nasty. That's his damn.
Hey, nasty.
Ale nasty.
Oh, hey nasty. I'm gonna say, hey, go find me a member of Brigand Air.
Anastas is like mid like drink of like this like warm kind of like morning mulled wine, right? Type scenario, and just like coughs, spews it across the side of the wall, and is immediately like dabbing. Oh, and they look over at you, and they're just like, what?
Oh, sorry. Hey, Anastas, if you're not busy today, will you go find me a member of Brigand Air?
It wasn't the way in which you asked it that shocked me. It was the last part.
Why?
You see them kind of like look around circumspectly and then kind of like wave their hand over their face, and you see their flesh turn into the pale kind of like gray sallow flesh of a drow, take on that kind of like appearance, and Anastas looks at you and is like, really?
Yeah.
They're not exactly like, I mean, okay, what do you want me to say?
But I want to talk to their boss.
I'm supposed to just find a member of Brigand Earth and say, Bones wants to talk to your boss? And that'll work?
I'm
With
50-50. 40-60?
I
No,
don't
probably
know that I'm
70-30.
comfortable with 40, 50, or 40, whatever. Those are dangerous people.
I think it might work. It should be fine. Look, I'll write a note. Is that better if I write a note and you can just deliver the note?
You can see Anastas is legitimately like a little concerned about this. If you want, you can make a persuasion check to try, or an intimidation check, technically, to try to
No, I
get
don't like
Anastas to
him.
do
I
what you
like
want.
him. Persuade him.
A 13.
pretty good.
You realize Anastas is honest to goodness a little shaken by the idea of approaching a member of this notorious mercenary band of drow without some sort of kind of like solid plan of action or like guarantee of success. So Anastas needs a little something to like make this.
What, you want some drugs? What does he want? Liquid courage?
Anastas is like, they want some sort of like guarantee. They want you to like either give them money to give to a person, or they want some sort of, they want a way to where it's like, oh, I bothered you, I'm sorry, here, take this and let me leave, you know? Or some sort of guarantee that like approaching a member of Breaking the Earth is not gonna get them killed.
It probably won't.
That's the concern. That's the problem. That's why Anastas is hesitating.
It's a reasonable concern. Okay, would it be better if you just like found out where they hang out and I'll approach them? Does that make you feel better?
I am more willing to do something like that, yes. I can investigate around and see if I can track down any presence of Breaking the Earth.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Bones trying to get our employees killed.
I'm pretty sure it would be okay.
Alright, we'll see how that goes.
Ezra would have penned a note to send off to Mert, just that we're topside, and if you need to check in, I'm here.
Sounds good. Cool.
Kind of assuming that, especially with the Harper's troop that's there, he probably already knows.
Probably is already aware of, but just in case, you know,
Yeah.
following the formalities, you know.
Right.
Okay. Fantastic. Anything else that you guys want to do before you head out?
No, I'm good to head.
Okay.
No, I'm good.
You guys head out. Once again, you have too big of a party to reliably fit into a carriage, so you will have to either take multiple carriages or you'll have to flag down a dray. I say flag down a dray. You don't really flag down a dray in winter. You have to actually send for a dray, which will cost you 1 gold. But it is a convenience. A dray is basically like a bus in Waterdeep.
Ordering a bus. All right.
It's comfortable for up to like 10 to 15 people, I think is the basis of it.
I'll pop for that.
So that would be for the 4 of you, plus your 2 dragon companions, plus the real clincher, because you could fit 6 people in a carriage, but Mossy takes up a bit of space and is very heavy.
Is that 1 gold one way or round trip?
It's one way, because you're basically renting the dray. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna drop you off and find other
So
fare.
it's round trip.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
round
yeah.
trip.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so easy enough. And I think you guys have been in a dray before, technically, but I don't know if I've ever described these. These things are actually like little luxurious, like fucking almost kind of like the size of a van or bigger, right? That gets taken through Waterdeep. Team of 6 horses.
I'm not gonna lie, Jeremy. I forgot about Dre.
I hate you so much. I hate you. take inspiration and shut up
Yeah,
and
I
never
already have it,
speak
but
to me
alright.
again.
How many
Alright.
of our viewers actually know what that reference means?
So
Oh,
I
I'm sure there are a bunch of
I
90
hope
90s
all of
kids.
them. I really do. Okay. Anyways, the interior of this dray is incredibly comfortable. There aren't like individual seats. There's like big benches on either side of the aisle that goes down the center of the dray itself. Big plush cushions all draped over the seating and latched kind of like into little like wooden slats. There's little tables, little like end tables in between the two like facing portions. Again, kind of like on a big bus. And there is a driver of the dray, and then there are two staff in the dray that bring you hot coffee or hot chocolate
Hey.
or little like cakes, little tea cake, cookies, pastries,
Wow.
types of things. It's all like kind of like what we would consider to be like pre-made stuff, right? So it's all right. It's not like crazy good, but it's fine. It's
I'm
just
assuming it's
nice
like
to have it provided to you in this type of. It's almost kind of like what you would get on
Like
an
biscuits.
airplane or something like that.
Yeah.
Exactly, 100%. So that is happening, and it's not a short trip down the high road through the majority of the city of Waterdeep, out of the gates, both the initial gates and then the outer gates, and then up the South Cliff Way to the village of Undercliff, or Undercliff Village. You can see as you're approaching, there are snow-covered orchards surrounding the landscape around this portion of Undercliff. Undercliff is filled with a bunch of different things. It's mostly farmland and orchards and a few little like villages here or there for the people that run those things, and those things all immediately go into the the markets of Waterdeep. But there's also the muster ground, the marching ground, where the various military components of Waterdeep will raise, right? Like they will muster if marching off to war or things like that. That's where actually the majority of the troops were mustered during the Howldown event, right? As you are approaching, you do see there are various orchards that are covered in snow. The trees are covered in snow. And then there are some orchards that are not, that are green as the deepest day of spring and are full of fruits. And you know this just from the general kind of like conversation in the within the city. There are certain orchards that operate for the City of Splendors year-round because either they have very wealthy, very powerful benefactors that pay druids to keep their lands evergreen, or they themselves are so well off and wealthy that they actually do it themselves, and thus they dominate the markets during the winter portions of Waterdeep. Because the City of Splendor's got a lot of mouth to feed, and they ain't shy about spending some coin. Anyways, it's a very easy task to find your way to the Undercliff Inn. And it's actually just called the Inn Under the Cliff. But
Creative.
yeah, I mean, it's in the Undercliff Village, in the area of Waterdeep known as Undercliff, so it kind of is what it is. There is not a lot of activity out here in the village. Your dray ride does take you probably the better part of an hour and a half. So you're gonna spend about 3 hours this day in transit, depending on where you go back to. But it's not that big of a deal. And you are abandoned, not really abandoned, but when you make it out of the second gate of Waterdeep, the outer gate, Oranax actually, you stop the dray and Oranax leaves you. But you can see he doesn't head back into the city. He walks northward along the edge of Undercliff, like kind of just staying within the bounds of the city of Waterdeep itself. Up on the cliff. Sorry, not at the bottom of the cliff. He kind of like trails the outer portion of Undercliff.
All right. Well, we don't want to. We will need to wait up for him when we head back, or.
Oh, you would have gone out of the river gate anyways, not the south gate. But the same thing would have happened. No, he bids you all adieu, right? Like he says like a little goodbye to Nindeltath, and they share a hug, and it's understood that, you know, get out of here, don't come back, you know, type of situation.
Go on, get.
And then you part ways. Unless there is anything else that you guys want to say or do with Aranax, he jets.
I can't think of. No, I ain't got nothing.
You make your way to the inn under the cliff, and the dray pulls over, and the driver immediately asks you if you're going to be a while, right? Because if you are going to be a while, he's going to take the horses into the stables of the inn and get them kind of like warmed up and, you know, all that stuff. He's not going to just have them stand out here in the cold.
Sure. Let's see. I actually have no idea how long it's going to take.
He looks at you as 20 minutes or less.
That's good.
Sure.
Job done.
If you're gonna be longer, come let me know.
Will do.
And he basically gives you the Waterdavian phrase of like, I'll keep the meter running type scenario. You know? Like, I'll keep her warmed up type situation. And you all are able to walk out. You see the dray leans when Mossy kind of like steps down the steps. It's not like a full leap, but it does kind of like just a little bit. The five of you plus Nindeltath walk into a cozy little inn. Two-story place. It's got rooms. It's got the kind of very quintessential tavern scenario, a big open kind of like floor plan on the first floor. There's a couple of more private rooms in the back and kind of like a corner with a bigger table for larger parties. There's a big fireplace that kind of separates that corner from the actual rooms. There's a bar off to the right side, a bunch of tables in kind of like this open space. There's less tables next to a kind of like a very small, like 10 by 10 stage on the western wall on the left-hand side as you walk in. There's less tables immediately around that, and you can see there's kind of like scrape marks on the floor next to the tables that are in that area. So you can see like occasionally those tables get shoved back away from the stage to create kind of like a little dancing area, that type of situation. For when the night gets lively. But it's fucking early morning right now in the village of Undercliff, which does not have the amount of people that Waterdeep has. So there are 3 people here. One of which is the actual barkeep, who looks relatively blearry-eyed, but otherwise it doesn't seem like there's any issues. A relatively nondescript man, kind of like thicker build, but not really like portly or anything like that. Just a big kind of like robust man. A little bit of a double chin, and kind of like a little bit of like a patchy kind of like beard scenario. But otherwise a relatively like happy face, if a little kind of like, why am I awake? Ish kind of mood. And then there is a very portly gentleman at the bar, who is just drinking and eating. This kind of like looks very quintessential, kind of like British breakfast, right? Like tomatoes and beans and sausages and stuff like that. Like a very hearty, healthy, like, oh my damn, that's a big breakfast type scenario. And he's just like, he's invested. He like looks up and he smiles and gives you all a wave when you all, because he's a pleasant fellow. He sees the Zorn and he's like, oh. Or I guess it goes in order of operations, right? Like he sees the regular looking people, right? He sees the lightning skinned man. He sees the cat dude. He sees the tiefling, and so he keeps his like, and then he sees
who's the fucking alien now, motherfucker?
The little red-skinned blender, and he's like,
tieflings are not uncommon.
But he still smiles and he still waves at you all. And then he kind of like goes back to eating his food. The barkeep kind of like looks at you all, like looks up, looks at you all, takes you in. And he seems to have that kind of like very appraising eye of like, is this trouble? I don't know. Like, and again, goes through kind of these stages of like, I'm not sure if this is trouble or not. And then kind of like turns his head and looks to the third person in the room, who is sitting at one of those fewer tables, one of those more sparse tables near the stage, probably about 30 or 40 feet away from this is a pretty big inn, right? It's not a tiny place. It's a pretty big inn. About 30, 40 feet away from the big fireplace, which is just kind of like coals right now, but putting off enough heat to keep this place kind of like, nice and warm. Not hot, just nice and warm. And you see a older woman sitting at this table, and she sticks out like a sore thumb. She looks like nobility. She does look human. She has, wrinkles, obviously some age to her, but it's hard to determine, right? Because she has that kind of like noble lady scenario going on where she's very well taken care of. So she's very lovely looking, but obviously older, but it's hard to tell, right? Like, is she really old and just aged really well, or is she not, question mark, right? But she sticks out, not necessarily because of her beauty or anything. She's not stunning. She is lovely, but she's not stunning. And it's not her age or the kind of like regal way that she holds herself. It's the fact that she's sitting there in a huge frou-frou, multi kind of like tiered, almost ball gown-esque dress that is just the bronzest bronze you've ever bronzed. Is the only way I can really describe that.
It's very bronze.
It's super bronze.
It's like shiny, clean bronze, or
absolutely
like
very
bronze?
shiny, very clean bronze. Oh, sorry, I'm an idiot. It's not bronze. I'm a fuckwit. It's copper.
Damn. It's aggressive.
Wow.
Look, I am very aggressive to myself. Yes. Yeah. So exact same scenario, but it's the copperiest copper you've ever coppered. And so it looks just incredibly out of place. It's like rose. It's the frou-frou kind of like layers and layers and layers of kind of like, there's a word for it, but I don't remember what it's called, but it's a very pom-pom kind of like overly big ball gown scenario that is just beautiful copper and this old woman kind of sitting there. And she's not oblivious. She looks up at you all as you all kind of arrive, and she just gives you a smile.
Is that your person, Matt? She's the only one here that's weirder than us.
Person?
I mean, she is wearing a lot of bronze, so...
Copper.
Copper.
My bad.
Sorry.
Yeah, because
Copper.
Jeremy fucked it up.
I did it. It was me. I'm the problem.
Hi, it's me.
Me. Exactly.
So I think it's probably safe to assume yes. So I guess let's go head on over there.
Okay. Matashtai crosses the room. Nindeltath kind of like taking your taking your scenario in stride. Ba, 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 ba. Follows after you and just very kind of like nonchalantly just stands at your right and slightly back, but doesn't introduce himself.
Okay. I approach her and I say, excuse me. Ezrah Doa?
She kind of like,
Question mark?
am I that different in this form?
Well,
You know, he was high on ayahuasca last.
yeah, I was high as shit last time.
That's fair. I forgot that, actually. Yeah, because you went on this whole, like, fucking walkabout scenario. I forgot about that. Holy shit. I mean, you did that, but then you spent, like, 2 days with her afterwards, right? But she was in her fucking massive dragon form the entire
Yeah,
time,
but
so...
like, yeah, you were a dragon versus not a dragon.
She looks at you
But
and
I like your dress. It's very nice.
she does that thing where, like, as a noble lady, her shoulders never change their elevation, her chin never changes its elevation, right? But she is still somehow emotive, right? She splays her hands out, and she just says, Matashtai, I expected you to be able to, I don't know, garner someone's presence a bit more.
Yeah, idiot.
I'm a little lacking the last few days.
He died.
You see a sheen kind of like her eyes out of nowhere do the kind of like nictating membranes thing, and then there's a sheen over her eyes, and she looks at you with a different kind of perception, and you see after a moment she doesn't gasp, but there is a obvious intake of air as she kind of like does this kind of like look at you.
Yeah, we ran into some trouble down under the mountain.
Well, you have found your way out of it, at least partially. I'm sure you will find yourself the rest of the way out of it.
That's the hope. Say, well, I got you. Know anyone really good with dreams?
I personally don't mess with the things myself, but I do know that many followers of Sehanin are practitioners of the Lady of Dreams.
I think that was our plan, but just figured I'd check. Well, anyway, this here, and I kind of turn my body and kind of point to Nindeltath. This is Nindeltath.
I have been told in the very curt message that was sent to me by a rather lovely woman.
That's my response in game.
I'm trying to remember, was it Vajra we had sent that? Yeah.
That's sarcasm.
Yeah. Anyway, we found him down in the dungeon, and he's been through the ringer a bit. and I thought maybe he could use a friend, and maybe you could be that friend to help him through some of that pain.
I would be happy to. She looks over at Nindeltath, and he kind of like, they graciously kind of like nod at each other, and there's a brief smile. There's no circling, not like Orinex. There's an acknowledgement there, right, between the two of them. And you see kindness. There had been kindness in Ezrah's eyes after looking at you. You do see. I will note this. When she stops looking at you and she turns to look at Nindeltath, her eyes do that nictating thing again, and the sheen goes away. Right, like she stops using whatever she was using to look at you to look at Nindeltath instead. And there is a brief moment exchange between them. Nindeltath introduces himself. Ezrah introduces herself. And there is a pretty big measure of, you all can kind of like see it and feel it. There's a pretty healthy measure of respect coming from Nindeltath. Like, he bows deeply to her, and he calls her the authority. And then Ezrah kind of like turns to you, Matashtai, and she says, I am happy that you thought of me, and I am happy to do this. As you have known from our prior engagements, I have been in a bit of a self-imposed exile, happily, but self-imposed exile for a while. It will be nice to spend some time with another, and whether, and she kind of gestures to Nindeltath, whether you decide to remain there or not, the Sword Mountains have plenty of space for others of our kind. We will find an easy way to accommodate. And so that moment kind of like passes. Nindeltath nods and turns to all of you, kind of like as a group, and says, "Thank you for doing me this kindness. I don't really know what else to say. I will appreciate your caring as I move forward from this." And then he kind of like sits down near Ezrah, not directly next to her, but kind of like at the same table across from her.
I kind of give him a quick pat on the shoulder. Say, "Good luck."
He nods. He says, "I need only time. Lots and lots of time."
Yeah, and like to that, I'll say,
I'll be right back, guys.
Things will get better. I know things suck right now, but like you said, in time.
He looks at you, Ashes, and he says, "There is nothing that will ever happen that will make things better. But
of course.
Things will be different. As I move forward, I will find other things to engage my thoughts."
Good.
Very good.
Do they have like money? Like, so they like if they come back into like human stuff, and they're probably gonna need money. They got money.
Nindeltath has not had any money this entire time. You discuss, like, you proffer the notion, like, and you go like to reach for coin, and Ezrah like pats the side of her dress, and you hear the jingle of coins.
Okay, so
and she says, "They may be out of mint, perhaps, but they will not be rejected out of hand anywhere we go. And besides, we are not planning on staying more than a while before we leave for greener pastures.
Okay.
You hear the barkeep mutter something about better not be my pastures under his breath.
Does he know?
He knows. He fucking knows.
He knows?
He fucking
What does that mean? He
knows.
racist? Do we have a racist bartender?
No, he just doesn't want to lose his cattle.
He doesn't want a dragon taking his fucking livestock, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. Thought he was.
He doesn't want to deal with some theft, some hooligan taking his cattle.
And you, like, he says it pretty quietly, right? Like, he's not trying to be, like, openly combative or rude or anything like that. There's a couple of you that probably don't hear it. Sorry, Ezra, you know. But the players, it's fun for everyone to hear.
I'm hanging out with two dragons again. This is fun.
But both of the dragons absolutely hear, and both of their eyes kind of, like, turn slightly. They don't turn their bodies, but they both just, like, turn slightly. And, you know, nothing happens, but they note it.
They should
You
do like a quick little like forked tongue go. just
Ezra not even realizing something just happened, just turns and nods towards Ezra. It's a pleasure. And then turns to Nindeldath before she can even acknowledge it. Just doing a quick best of luck. May you find peace. Hopefully we meet together on better terms.
Nindeltath nods at you. During this time, you can see Ezra is kind of like, whenever there's not a part where she's speaking directly to someone, she's kind of appraising the rest of you. She's looking at Ash's bones and Ezra with this kind of slight familiarity, as if she's kind of like appraising you based up, potentially maybe off of conversations had with Matashtai during the time that he spent with
I don't
her.
notice.
Right, like that type of scenario. But she's giving the whole like up and down of each one of you, and kind of like nodding her head and you know, being involved. But yeah. Anything else?
Well, I mean, we don't want to let the horses get cold, I guess.
As things get awkward, Ezra leaves.
Okay. Sure. I walk away.
I let things get awkward.
I walk away.
Okay. This is going to be one of those moments as a DM where I will step in and, because the characters wouldn't necessarily do this. Like, Ezrah and Nindeltath aren't necessarily going to do this. But I, as the DM, will step in and nudge, nudge, wink, wink, remind Matashtai that he has the shards of silver dragon eggs.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if I asked permission to take those, or if I took those after
You absolutely did. Yep, you 100% did.
Okay.
And in point of fact, Nindeltath, when you asked about it, Nindeltath gave you this kind of like speech along the lines of, I can't remember it, but so I'm paraphrasing, right? But it was along the lines of like, they're dead, right? Like, there is nothing that can be done for them. They're not only were they petrified, which maybe they could have been recovered from, but they were shattered, right? So there is, if something could be done from them, right? Nindeltath had the opinion that at least out of creativity or out of something like that, there would be something remaining of them or some purpose for them, right? Nindeltath had a very practical kind of like approach to it, and almost kind of like this concept of like, I've lost my children or lost the chance of knowing them. There's nothing that you can do that is going to bother me about this.
Okay. Then yeah, I'll try to get some of Zeradoa's time, and kind of bring that up and say,
Okay.
hey, I got permission from Nindletath to take these.
Do you
and I'm
do it
wondering-
away from Nindeltath, or do you do it while Nindeltath is there?
I don't know. I don't want to like throw it in his face. So
I'm asking. Do you
yeah,
try to
I'm
like
gonna,
ask
I'm trying
her
to
for a
pull her
private
aside.
moment? Okay.
Yeah, I'll try to pull her aside for a couple
you
minutes.
you pull her aside. She stands up, and when she stands up, she does the perfect like straight stand up, stiff as a board, shoulders like again perfectly horizontal, chin perfectly, and she like her whole ensemble just floats across the
Oh
floor
God.
into a corner with you. It's very disconcerting. You're not sure if she's actually walking or actually just hovering.
Perfect. So once I get her kind of away a little bit, I mentioned what I was saying before. Hey, I've got these silver dragon egg shells.
Immediately, you sense a change in her demeanor, and her eyes do that nictating thing again, and there's the sheen, and you feel yourself being intensely scrutinized.
I got Nindletath's permission. I made sure to ask. And I was wondering if you might be able to guide me on how I can maybe enhance my talismans or use these better or anything like that.
Okay. You are not lying. There is no lie here. This was absolutely 100% a scenario of asking permission and being granted permission. She looks at you, and I want you to roll me a persuasion check. Your DC is going to be a 10. You are not persuading her on the concept of, did you do this legitimately? This is an entirely, well, not entirely different thing, but this is a different thing. So, roll me a persuasion check, DC 10.
Okay. Persuasion check. 13.
Ooh, he's persuasive.
13. Okay, all right. So you say these things to her. You feel this intense scrutiny. And you know instinctively that she told you, right? Like when she gave you the paints and she told you kind of like what the paints were made from, etc., right? Like she told you that basically along the lines that if you did a bad, she would not be happy with it, right?
Yeah.
And you see her, or you feel her scrutiny, satisfied, and she completely believes you, which is good because it's true. And then she looks at you and she says, absolutely, I can assist you. What are you doing the rest of today?
Hadn't really had any plans aside from going to the temple of was it Sehanine? Sehanine? Dream Lady. But I can do that tomorrow, I guess.
She nods at you and she says, I think us spending the better part of a day here, and when she says us, she kind of like gestures to Nindeltath, spending the better part of a day here will be fine. And I think we should ask if Nindeltath would like to be involved.
All right. It's fine by me.
Okay.
I just didn't want to, I don't know, flaunt it in front of his face in case it was still kind of uncomfortable.
I think it will be a very tender subject. But if I have surmised correctly, I hope that he will see them being given a different form and an effect for the future as a good thing. And perhaps that will help him on his path.
Fair enough.
Most of the time, death is senseless, and it cannot be given greater meaning. This death is still senseless, but at the very least, we can have it create something for a better future. She walks over to Nindiltath and kind of pulls him aside and begins to have a private conversation with him, unless you want to be included in it.
No, it's fine.
Which gives you an opportunity to approach the rest of the party about what the fuck is happening.
Sure. Yeah. I'll let the guys know. Hey, Ezrah's gonna help me figure out how I can maybe amplify my talismans using the eggs that Nindiltath let me take. So I'll probably be here the rest of the day. If you guys got other things you want to take care of.
How are you gonna get back?
Run.
It's mighty cold.
You did see horses in the stables.
Damn, I should have brought Gallant. I wasn't thinking.
You should have brought Gallant. Missed opportunity.
Yep.
I mean,
yeah,
I mean, I'll let you retcon that if you want to actually retcon that. If you want to say, hey, we're gonna go on a little trip, might as well take Gallant out for the day, you know?
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna retcon that. I brought Gallant out.
Okay. So Matashtai rode Gallant along the way, and yeah, that's what that is. There's actually a lot of like little stuff that we gloss over while you guys are traveling through a city like Waterdeep. Like when you guys went through the two gates, right? Each time like you go through this whole like big roll call, and the guard gets your names, and specifically Ezra's departure is notated at both of the gates, specifically on a list of people who are on call from the Order of Mages and Protectors, because they're very particular about mages' comings and goings within the city of Waterdeep, especially fucking 13th level mages.
13's just a number.
Like they
it's
don't
fine.
fucking play around with that shit. So yeah,
It's just a number.
but yeah, there's a whole situation. Cool. The party is notified. I'm assuming no one in the party, or I say this, obviously you guys are more than welcome to do so, but no one in the party is planning on sticking around for the day?
I can't imagine why.
Okay. Perfectly fine. So, this will be a very interesting upcoming solo combat for Matashtai, I'm sure.
He's a fucking alien. He'll be fine.
Wow. Aggressive.
Well, I assume the hope would be that not only is an alien, but he's got 2 dragons with him, so hopefully he'll be fine.
Unless, Matt, you want somebody to hang back with you.
No,
But I was
alright.
definitely joking about the solo combat, if that's a concern.
No, I'm good, guys. Go ahead and do your thing.
The
All right,
party,
see you later.
Later,
I got stuff to do.
dude.
the party heads out, drays up, and moseys on back into the city of Waterdeep. From there, Matashtai, as the party leaves, Ezrah and Nindiltath approach you, and Nindiltath, there's a moment of silence, and then Nindiltath looks at you and he says, Ezrah has explained the situation. I believe I would be comfortable and potentially in the future even happy. Know that my children will have been able to aid a good purpose. So I will not only condone this, but also give what assistance I can to the authority.
Thank you, Nendleteth. I appreciate that.
Have nods. And then Ezrah goes over to the barkeep and pays for one of the private rooms, the kind of like the little back rooms there's two of. She pays for one for basically the rest of the day. That way you can, I say you can. I don't assume that you bring like all your literally everything with you all the time. Although I do think you keep most of your talismans and stuff like that in your bags of holding, etc., etc.
In my bag of holding.
But Ezrah sets up this room with like a half a dozen easels, and canvases, and like a bunch of different equipment for the making of paints, basically. And we'll go through a process with you of turning the shards of the silver dragon eggs. They were unpetrified, right? Nendleteth unpetrified them. And then you took them. So they are unpetrified. So she takes the shards of the silver eggs, and basically goes through this process of making additional magical pigments out of these silver dragon eggs. And you are involved in the process, but your involvement in the process, I do not mean this in an offensive manner. Your involvement in the process is less consequential. Like
Fair.
once this is set in motion, she's gonna make these pigments regardless. You being there, however, is a method of, or is a scenario of learning. So, Matashtai, I would like you to roll me an intelligence check, just straight up.
Ooh, I'm super good at those. Here you go. Bam.
An 8. The
I'm
process.
too dumb to understand what's going on.
It's not that you're too dumb to understand,
I mean,
the process that this ancient copper dragon goes through is so complex. She grinds the eggs down. Like, she goes through this whole, like, incantation ritual. She grinds the eggs down. She mixes them with various liquids and chemicals. She breaks out like an entire like alchemical kit that like Ashes uses, right, to make potions. And she's combining various different like scenarios, and you're like, okay, this is a lot for some paints. And then she dries that, like, she spreads everything out. She gets it all into this kind of like various different stages. She mixes them all together. She dries them out, using magic to kind of like flash dry things, right, rather than wait hours and hours and hours and hours and days and days. And then she does it all over again, right? Like, she regrinds the mixtures that she's creating and goes through these other alchemical processes, and the multiple times throughout, she's also weaving arcane rituals to instill enchantment into the things. It's a lot. So it's not that Matashtai's dumb, it's that this is too fucking much. Period. But towards late afternoon is when this would actually kind of end. Nendleteth is there the entire time and helps Ezrah through portions of the magical process, helps through some of the physical process as well. And in point of fact, you help through some of the physical processes, right? Like, Ezrah is perfectly happy to give you a mortar and pestle and have you crush shit up, right? But eventually, through your powers combined, through a lunch served, and various drinks throughout the day, Ezrah hands over to you a couple of these canisters of pigments. And she started with a single silver dragon, or not a single, there were 3 silver dragon eggs, I think, right? Or the remnants, something like
Sounds
that, right?
about right,
2
yeah.
or 3, right? She started with the shards of those eggs, and you end with close to a dozen or more little jars of various colors of paint. And she tells you that these paints are somewhat more powerful. On their own, they are just like the paints that she gave you previously. If used in conjunction with those paints, they are more powerful, right? The idea being that you now have a more diverse set of tools with which to create your talismans, meaning you can now create a higher tier of talisman.
Hell yeah.
Yay!
Yay.
He's getting better because monks aren't already broken enough.
Okay, alright, everyone gets their thing, sir. Sir.
I, for one, am happy to have a broken character in our party.
No, because that then means Jeremy gets to throw harder shit at us.
Yeah,
Oh,
that doesn't bother me at all.
That's already how I exist in a normal world. I'm always just like, they can take harder shit, let's go. Eventually, I'm gonna fuck up royally and, like, disintegrate all 4 of you in one, like, turn.
No,
and
it's going to be 4 rays that all just turn on me.
there we
Fucking
go.
hell.
I'll just guarantee that someone's dead, you know?
Me.
That's the way to do it, honestly.
That means, Matashtai, you can now create uncommon talismans, because previously you were only creating common talismans. Now there is a flip side to that. The pigments themselves, right, are one thing. They are the actual embody of the magic itself that helps fuel the talismans. But there are other components that you have to buy for the talismans themselves. We've talked about this, you already know, right? Like, each talisman that you create costs you 1 gold. Uncommon talismans are rarer, more what's the word I'm looking for? Harder to produce instances, and therefore will cost you 5 gold worth of materials to produce. However, Ezrah explains to you that due to the magical nature of the enchantments put upon these pigments, they are basically eternal as long as you are not just, like, opening them up and dumping them out, you know? As long as you are using them just in a regular sense, they will continue to refresh themselves.
Okay, cool.
And then she ends with kind of like the same thing as she did last time. It's if you wish to further this line of work, if you wish to become more of an artist, more of a creator, right? And she will specify this time, if you wish to become more of a creator rather than a destroyer, then if you find more ingredients like these, seek me out.
I will.
Appreciate it. And again, throughout the day, you hear Nindeltath refer to Ezrah as the authority. And it's at this point, right, that he kind of like nods and he kind of smiles. Looks at the paints and he smiles, and he looks at you and he smiles, and he looks at Ezrah and he smiles, and he says, "It is somewhat heartening to witness the authority passing on her gifts." And Ezrah kind of like turns and looks at him with this kind of like look of surprise. And she even says, "That's not what," and then she stops herself, kind of like realizing that might not have been the intention, but actually that kind of is what's happening.
So basically, I'm the apprentice to a dragon. Got it.
Dragon apprentice. Oh, that's cool.
I will say
It's weird though. Like, you're not apprenticing to a dragon to like be a dragon. You're apprenticing to a dragon to paint.
He's apprenticed to become a dragon.
I I will say, you keep calling her the authority. What's that about?
You see, Ezrah is it. You saw this when she's in company, right? In the inn, she was very, highborn lady, very proper, very prim, right? When she was in her place in the Sword Mountains with you, she was not really super proper or anything like that. She wasn't like crass, but she wasn't especially proper. When she has been in this room with just you and Nindeltath, she has been more relaxed than she was in the tavern. But she... Sorry, in a momento, I'm trying to verify something. Bum bum bum. Medium resolution. Yeah, okay, I'm correct. She looks somewhat bashful, which is a look that Ezrah doesn't really do the majority of the time, right? And Nindeltath looks at you like, you didn't know? Ezrah, and he kind of like looks at her, and she doesn't stop him. She doesn't protest, so he looks at her kind of like with permission, and then he kind of like cautiously continues. Just says, Ezrah, one of her many titles is the Sword Mountain Authority. 100 years ago, every noble house in the Sword Coast had one of her paintings. She was probably the premier artist of that time period. And for people who are not in that circle, that's another term for an artist or a creator is an authority. It's typically like a maestro or a master when it comes to like music or something like that, but an authority is somewhat sometimes a painter.
Look at how cultured you are, Jeremy.
That's not how cultured I am. It's how cultured they are. They're dragons. I'm a dumb southern boy. They're dragons. they use big hoity-toity meanings. So I'm just along for the ride. So yeah, I mean, Nindeltath kind of like looks at you like he didn't realize, right? Like he thought what he was saying was a known and understood title. But he seems, in her presence, he seems incredibly impressed, right? Like he's in the presence of celebrity. You
I
also
kind of click my teeth at it at Zerador. I'm like, I didn't know that. Why didn't you share?
I hadn't thought it was an especially important topic of conversation. It's not even really a thing anymore. It was years and years ago.
I kind of bump my elbow into Nindeltath and I go, humble dragon.
You bump your elbow into the hardest rib cage you have ever bumped your elbow into.
I break my elbow.
It's like bumping your elbow into a solid fucking stone wall. As you bump the side of this adult silver dragon, while kind of like not really taking the piss, but making a joke at the expense of an ancient copper dragon.
And this is how Matt actually dies.
This is why his intelligence is so low.
Wow, there we go. Yay.
Oh, the Odie.
So yeah, there is a generally happy not quite jubilant, right? But there's a generally happy atmosphere after this series of events, after the successful creation of these pigments, and after they are handed off to you. Ezrah does gift them to you with well wishes and hope for your success. You have, correct me if I'm wrong, you have discussed with her just kind of like a general concept of what you and the party are doing when you first met with her, right?
I think so.
I'm
if
pretty
not, we can say I did.
I'm pretty sure that's correct. And
He was high as a fucking kite. Of
Would it
course,
be-
he told her everything.
would it be safe to assume that you have been at least relatively open about your situation with Valena now?
Yes,
Okay.
I would. Yeah, so I kind of go a little bit more into the details of what happened down below,
Sure.
and kind of tell her what my next plan is.
It's Zeradoa and Nindeltath as well, right? Like being in your company, they both commiserate with you, and they give you their condolences. And Nindeltath is not so much the presence of encouragement, because he's in a way himself, but Zeradoa very much is, right? Like she says it very matter of factly. Like she seems to have every belief that you will find your friend, you will reconnect, and you will continue on in your journeys. I am certain of it.
Thank you. And if I find more stuff to use for pigments, I'll come visit you.
And you know, like after she said that thing to you, the insinuation there is still the same as it was last time, right? That
It better be through good means.
yeah, it better be through good means, because she is not about this dragon hunting bullshit. Like she'll put a boy down. Absolutely.
Yep. No, that's fair. If I do find some, do you want me to message you beforehand? You want me to just venture out to visit you? What's proper protocol?
She'll say to you, honestly, if you have the means to contact me, that is probably a good idea, especially with what, and she gestures to Nindeltath, I might not be home depending on the situation. But at the same time, if you do not have the capabilities or are unable to obtain those capabilities, and you just wish to come visit, I would not reject your company.
All right.
It just might be easier on you. This trip took me a half a day.
Did you fly?
No.
She looks at you like, why wouldn't I?
Oh shit, it's gonna be a long trip for me. Okay, got it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if you recall, it was like a 3-day trip up to the Sword
forgot
Mountains.
how long
Previously.
that trip took to get out
Yeah,
to the mountain.
it was like a 3-day trip, and then you were there for like another 2 days or
It's like
some
an
shit. It
international
was a
flight,
big
but on
chunk of time. I think it was actually in conjunction, aside from the Howldown event, I think it was the biggest set of time that you all were up, out of the mountain. Period. I think maybe it was actually only like 4.5 days the entire time. I think I like hand waved a little bit of like the half day scenarios for you to where like it's shaved down, but yeah. It's a ways. Anyways, that's that. Matashtai, that does consume the majority of your day. You could try to take care of some smaller things, but no actual like work days or anything like that. This does include like little portions where you're acclimated, etc., etc. You from here on can fully function with the talismans, pigments. You just have to buy materials should you need to do so. So, from there, we will probably I say that there's gonna come a part where Ezrah and Nindeltath prepare to leave. Is there anything else that you want to do, or is there just like a sort of goodbye that is given between the three of you, and then you take Gallant and head back into Waterdeep?
We have a good goodbye, and then me and Gallant go on a trip.
Sounds like a plan.
Actually, is Wolf still out?
So Wolf vanishes at the
end of the
end
day?
at basically midnight of every single day, right?
I'm bringing him back out for the trip back.
Absolutely. So roll that beautiful bean footage. Let's see. Let's see what we get.
Oh, let's get it now.
We got Moose, or
Ooh.
what's 5? Is that Panther?
I don't know. Let's check our handy dandy bag. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is Panther. It's elk or panther.
I mean, he never gets to be elk. I'm gonna let him be elk. We're going on a big
He
trip.
doesn't ever get to be elk because elk is fucking massive.
Yeah, we're gonna let him be an elk today.
The fucking giant elk comes out and it dwarfs Gallant. And Gallant is not a small fucking horse, but like this elk is massive. And Wolf is excited to come out. You recall, right, bringing Wolf out during one of the first kind of like snowy periods, and Wolf playing in the snow in actual like dire wolf form. And now he's scooping up drifts of snow in his antlers and kind of like flinging like I don't know, child-size fucking like piles of snow at you. It's not like a snowball. It's like a fucking snow 5-gallon bucket. Like,
does that count as a missile? Can I deflect that?
yeah, absolutely you can. 100%. If you want to. That only encourages him to do it more though, because he's like, this is fucking bullshit. I'll get you eventually. Yeah.
It uses multi-attack snow throw.
It's a bit strange, right? Maybe it's not strange, but when you first met Wolf was incredibly reserved. Curious, right? But very reserved. And the more time you have spent with Wolf, and truth be told, the more time that you have spent showing that this random human gives a shit about a cursed, trapped, fey creature, right? Has created this scenario where Wolf is somewhat playful, right? Like, and enjoys having fun and doing silly stuff. And you see more of that kind of like fey side of Wolf as you spend more time with him and, you know, leave him out of the bag more. But as you approach the gates, there is this person riding up on a horse and this massive fucking elk. And you both hear and see several ballistas click on the gates, and this isn't an especially unlike an atypical kind of like situation. Like, this is like Waterdeep keeps its status as a powerful, almost exalted city, honestly, within the Sword Coast by not fucking around and finding out, so to speak. I mean, don't get me wrong, they fuck around a lot, but they also invest a lot in not finding out, right? Like, that's like Vajra and Laeral Silverhand and Bert and the entire Emerald Enclave, right? Like, that's their job, is preventing the finding out portion from ever actually happening. And so
All right,
the city guard,
I pat Wolf on the back and say, let's send you back in for a bit. I don't think
They
they'll
know
let
you.
a big old elf come in.
I don't think they might be aware of Matashtai, but they are not aware of this massive elk running at the gates of Waterdeep.
I mean, how many times is an elk a bad thing?
Giant elk.
A giant elk. It's not just an elk.
Same thing.
Like
I mean, elk are pretty big, just straight up, in fairness, but I don't think it's quite the same thing. Anyways, it's an easy enough, whether you want to put, whether you want to bring a wolf back into the bag, or whether you want to try to explain the situation. Either way, there isn't going to be any issue, right? You're going to get questions whether Wolf goes back in the bag or not, because it's almost just as concerning,
fucking elk?
right? Like, you just go pat, the giant elk disappears, stroll on up to the city gates. The city guard's still like, what the fuck was that, buddy? Like, where'd that giant elk go? What's fucking going? It's Shield Matashtai. Oh, are you fucking around with us? Do we need to put a tail on you?
No. Just my animal companion that I can summon when I need him.
The fucking animal companion would summon with these fucking event. God, get in here. Sign the form. Get in here.
I signed the form and I get on in there.
And that's Waterdeep, because fuck yeah, Waterdeep. Or at least that's my envisionment of Waterdeep. They're so fucking over adventurers that they're just like, sign the form, get the fuck in.
Get in here.
And it is at that point that we are going to turn over to the rest of the party and see what the fuck they are up to for this day, the first day of Altariac. But before we get there, we are going to go on break. So we will see you all in just a few minutes for more Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.